And hello, welcome back to the League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism, where we attempt to apply logic and reason to religion and politics. I'm here with my wonderful, beautiful co-host, Christy Santiago.
Hi guys, happy Friday.
Happy Friday. We are here again. It is not Valentine's Day this time, but we are still here with love and news as usual.
It's not Valentine's Day, that's right.
It's true.
That already happened.
But
there's only one.
I mean, there's only one a year.
Yeah, a year. We could make it the 12 days of Valentine's Day. How about that?
That could be
make
dope.
Up songs, we can decorate a tree. Sounds like a way more work than I want to do. Scratch the whole idea. Oh, goodness. We do have a really fun show for you guys tonight. And I do have, we have something new that was Mac's idea. Conservatives suck, and then something, and then liberals suck, and something. And I have two good somethings. Awesome. And then maybe we can do, we can promote, also do the opposite. You know, they're not all conservatives are monsters, and not all liberals are trying to steal the election. Although anyway, yeah. I'm sure I can find something good for both of them. So cool. We'll do that too.
Well, do you want to start with that? Want to start with that? Cool. Yeah, let's do that. I know we said we were going to start with election news, but whatever. We lied.
Why did you guys trust us? That was totally your own fault. It's our prerogative. All right. Conservatives suck. Okay, there's a show called The Josh Bernstein Show. You can find it on YouTube. It is a very far right, I would say, talk show. It's in its own category. He gets a lot of crossover Christians and conservatives, which, I mean, obviously. This show, this week, let's see, I think it was 2 days ago. The 19th, that was yesterday. Silly me. He says, Trump or death, and continues, you want more terrorists coming into the U.S.? It's Trump or death. He says, this is not about policy. Oh, obviously, that's what I wanted to say. But he says, it's not about policy or party. This is literally about survival, and the only thing that can save us is Donald Trump being reelected.
Sounds legit.
Conservatives suck. That's what that falls into.
And what's it called again?
It's Josh Bernstein, Bernstein.
I feel like I've heard of him.
It's the Josh Bernstein Show. It's his own show. He goes on about if you want control over immigration and illegals coming in, it's Trump or death. You know, if you want more terrorists coming in, which implies there's terrorists coming in, but if you want more terrorists coming in, it's Trump or death. You know, just total fear mongering to poor little, you know, Christian grandmas watching it. I really don't know the complete demographic. I know that it's mostly white evangelicals. So there's that. He was featured also on Right Wing Watch many times. So there's that as well. Under liberals suck. I did mention last week and probably the week before. No, definitely the week before. Nancy Pelosi. And I have to say, in this one, it's not just her. It's also every single Democrat that clapped or stood up in applause for Juan Guaido at the State of the Union. But my liberal suck specifically is Nancy. And she's the worst because she's then, after the State of the Union, thanks Juan Guaido on live TV. She walks, you know, up to the podium with him side by side. She thanks him for his courage, and then praised the opposition leader for what she called his bipartisan backing of both Democrats and conservatives, and Democrats and Republicans. Who cares what he's backing? He's backing whoever's giving him money, and since you guys are both giving him money, it's not really courage on his fault, on his part. I just, that's the liberal suck, because that sucks. All of that.
No, yeah, that's pretty sucky. And I think I know we mentioned it a few times. Excuse me, about Juan Guaido being at the state of the union, and yeah, that whole thing was gross. That was everyone sucks at that point. It was it was pretty bad.
It made my
thank you, Mr.
stomach
President.
drop. It was awful. It's just, it took all that like momentum of the movement we see, the grassroots we see, the new freshmen representatives that all of that, and it just made my stomach sink because the whole room was full of warmongers and neoliberals that care more about the almighty greenback than any person in their constituency that they're supposed to represent. And I'm not saying that they are even, are you calling them evil? No, I'm saying that their morals are gone. Like, they would rather have backing of millions of dollars. That's how the game is played. They're known for saying, you gotta follow the green, and they didn't mean, environment. they didn't. That's it. Just, and then to stand up and applaud him for courage, and it's just, he's not the president. Yeah. He's not democratically elected.
No, he's not. And I mean, even the if I'm saying it right, the Crichton or whatever it's called, at the bottom, it didn't say president of Venezuela. It said opposition leader,
right,
in Venezuela. Right. Excuse me. Also,
that's who he is. That's
right. That's his official title.
Right, and he
opposition leader.
What was it, like 2% of the vote? And
if that.
That's not how democracy works. It's so sad.
I am seeing in the live chat, Gup, one of our moderators, said Guaido is toast. When he went back to Venezuela, he was assaulted at the airport. I have not seen that yet.
Yes, and it wasn't just citizens of Venezuela. It was the airport personnel. Like, when you walk through an airport and people are helping you check your bag, you walk through it, all of them, the sweepers, everybody. I mean, chasing him through the airport, yelling at him, telling him he's a disgrace. Yeah, I don't condone or agree. And actually, I think that violence is the wrong thing to do. Throwing something at him that could hurt him or even not hurt him, I think it is the wrong thing to do. But everything else was, I love it. I love it. Be strong. Yeah. Attack him with words and logic and policy, and call him out. He's trying to overthrow your government. I think any citizen would be livid about that of a country.
Right. And I mean, I don't advocate for violence, especially physical harm in any way. But I do need to be honest and say, if you are like fucking over a country or trying to like overthrow a government in a very non-democratic way, you have that kind of stuff coming to you. I mean, you just do.
That is what's
because people get angry. Yeah. So like, I don't want to hear like your tears about it. I don't. I think he's like,
do it the legal way, Juan. Go knock on doors and talk to the icky brown people in your country. The majority, talk to them. Yeah. Get to know them. Be a part of their lives. Fight for them. Be a voice for them. Maybe you could win an election, but you would also have to follow through with policy, and you would have to do what you say you're going to do, and actually care. And when it's not real, people can tell that when it's a show.
Right. So let me say it like this real quick. The way I see Juan Guaido is likened to Nancy Pelosi, and the Democrats are so pissed at Trump for being an awful president that they, in quotations, overthrow him and say, All right, glad that's done. When it's not actually really done, like they just failed the impeachment, right? But after the impeachment, they went, all right, thank goodness Nancy Pelosi can now take over and make sure we're going in the right direction. That would be awful,
No.
right? I already don't like Nancy Pelosi. I think she's a piss poor example of what Democrats should be, and she should go. I think we should vote her out of her office and
She should retire.
just send her home.
Right.
Like, be done in politics and be forceful with our words about it.
Mhm.
If she or the Democratic Party put her up just to be president over Donald Trump right now,
Ugh.
I would not want to hear her tears about people chasing her down at an airport and throwing shit at her, because that's what you get for doing really shitty things against
her and
democracy.
Feinstein. I feel the same about both of them. They were trailblazers. They're in that book that I told you that I had that was like the first 5 women in Congress or whatever. It was amazing. I got it in like 6th grade. It was awesome. And they have done, I'm not negating anything that these 2 women have done. They have done a lot of good things throughout their career. They really have. But that time has stopped. Money is free speech. And I think that they're so tired. I feel like it's a job to them. So when it's a job, well, why do you go to work? What's a job? To make money. It's not, she needs to get out. She's not in it for the right reasons, hasn't been in it for the right reasons. It's time to go. And saying that I, give her props for doing the amazing work she has done. That does not mean that I endorse her record as of late. She has voted for every war. She has voted for atrocious policies and not fought hard enough to for her base. Look at anything in our political environment right now in this country. The right has always catered to their base. Always. That's their meat and potatoes. That's when Donald Trump only worries about what they think. That's wrong in my eyes. You have more people. However, the Democrats don't even count. They don't even take in what their base thinks. That's not something that they're, thinking about. How can we cater to our base? They're not. They think that they ignore us. Because if they did cater to the base, Feinstein and all of these corporate Democrats would have been saying things like AOC their whole career, and that's just not so.
Simple as that. It's just not right. I agree.
That's right.
So I can go ahead and give you the opposite that you said we should do. Conservatives don't suck. And liberals don't suck.
Did something right,
Right. Here's what they both don't suck for, and this is actually going into our main topics. All right, so I'm going to link it together. And actual election news. Everyone fucking hates Bloomberg. Like, Donald Trump hasn't stopped tweeting things about Michael Bloomberg, just making just the best trolly tweets about it. That's been fun. During the Nevada debate the other night, I didn't get to watch the whole thing yet, but I've seen a decent amount of clips, and it looks like all of the other contenders on that stage just pulled down their pants and took a shit on Bloomberg. It was such a shit show, and all the shit was slung in one direction. It was absolutely fantastic. Elizabeth Warren probably did the best about it, because it was really her field to criticize him in, with one, all of the stuff about the 2008 financial crash, where he basically made his fortune, and she tried to help people keep their homes, and whatever money that they had. And then also her being one of the women on stage to talk about the non-disclosure laws, or non-disclosure, what's the word I'm looking for, Christy?
NDA?
Agreements. Yes, the NDAs. She brought those up. She really backed him into a corner. And it was really, really wonderful. So she went as far as to say, so will you just release all of those women from those non-disclosure
that was the best
agreements right now on live television, so we can hear their stories if nothing was bad, and it was just maybe a dirty joke that they didn't like. Mm-hmm. And he was like, oh no, hold on. It was like, whoa, slow your roll. But he didn't say it like that. It was an immediate no.
Shut it down fast.
Yeah.
He tried.
No, I'm not saying that. But
he was implying, he said they wanted to keep it secret. Right. The women, the men, both, whatever, the women. He's just trying to make it sound like it is not one thing. It could be a whole bunch of different things, but it's one thing. Right. And the NDAs were not these women's idea. No. I mean, changed my mind.
He paid them to shut up.
Yeah.
Now, see, this is something I wanted to point out during this right here is, yes, they took an agreement because one, they didn't want to work for him anymore, most likely, right? I'm speculating a little bit, but this is what would make sense in any of these kind of cases. They don't want to work for this person anymore. They want to speak up about it, but also they're not in any position of power, right? So one, it could ruin their career to speak up, but they want to, and they're trying to. Two, he has enough money to pay him off and have him set for life if they just shut up. And that's important. If you can get enough money to actually live your life, that's a good thing, right? So they really have a choice to make. Well, go ahead and provide for my family, or stand up for what's right.
I mean, they obviously were hurt, physically, sexually, emotionally, all three, hurt enough that he was compelled to pay them and have them sign an NDA. To me, even if that wasn't even on the table, even if he has zero history with sexual predator behavior, if none of that existed, and it was just on the merit, just on the history we have with him being, he was a mayor, so I can go by that. He has been in leadership as far as the government and politics goes. Well, then, I hear it just, it's just me sometimes. Through all this gets in my shirt and makes me tickle. I'm like, stop.
I have the same problem.
Yes, all the time. Even if it was just that, without any of the, grab them by the stuff that we're already dealing with on one president, I would still feel the same way that I do right now about him. But with that added, it's just gross. Go away. You're a bad person, and you're a billionaire. You're a wickedly rich Mr. Burns. Go away.
Yeah, he's really in a competition with Trump on who could be a worse president.
Yeah,
he could be worse than Trump. I think anyone who agrees with half of what
Trump.
He
Trump's
is smarter than Trump.
He's smart. So
yeah. Trump doesn't have any decorum, right? No. Bloomberg would probably have a little more decorum, right. And people would be okay with the same shitty policies that Trump rolls out. And that's more dangerous, because if I would rather, and follow me on this, don't be upset, I would rather Trump have another 4 years than Bloomberg get into office, because
nothing
you
would
may
change.
Say what?
Nothing would change.
Yeah, well, some things would change, because the Democrats would act like okay, cool. At least we have a guy in there. But the same things would be happening behind the scenes, and we would lose that fight, like the fight within us, right? If we keep Trump in office, it keeps a fire lit under our ass for the next time around. With Bloomberg, or I'm trying to think of someone who's about as bad as, like, if Amy Klobuchar had Bloomberg's policies, or Trump's policies, or Pete, yeah.
Pete is scary, like CIA friends. Like you don't want him.
I don't think he's quite as bad, but I think he is getting there.
He doesn't have the years yet.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Give him 30 more years.
Yeah, basically, I think Biden would be a better example. Yeah. Still not quite as bad, but bad enough to where we would lose all of that momentum that we've built up over the last few years, with Bernie just running last time. And we'll just continue on as we have for the last 20 years with politics as usual, and nothing will change.
Wah, wah.
Things will just get worse for us, which isn't really changing because we're already on a decline, like the lower middle class and lower. So that's my rundown there. In other election news, when I wanted to let everyone know that on Wednesday, after the debate, Andrew Yang started his new job as political commentator, or CNN correspondent. So that's interesting.
Very.
Yeah, I think there's good and bad that come from that, because I'm worried he's gonna really start spouting off bullshit. But
be on the inside of the elite club.
Yeah, because he was just an outsider. That's what made him awesome. But at the same time,
who knows? He could stay being, anti-establishment.
He could. So it would be nice. Yeah, it would be nice. But right now, let's stay on the bright side of things here and say he's still in the limelight, right? He's still out there talking to people, and he has some influence, and he can use that for good. So let's hope he does that. Let's keep an eye on him, and I think that's great. Another thing I wanted to point out was Tulsi Gabbard. Just started her own podcast. I'm not sure if you got to listen to the first episode yet, Christy.
No, not yet.
Not yet. I listened. It was in New Hampshire, and she talked to a family about their health crisis, and it's a really interesting story, and that was the whole thing. She didn't do an intro or anything, so I'm not sure if it was meant to start as a podcast or if it was kind of one of her town hall things. But it wasn't a town hall; it was at a family's local business, right. And they went through their whole ordeal. It really is worth listening to. Excuse me, and I hope she does more things like that, because her whole podcast episode was just her talking to normal people. Was a presidential candidate sitting down and having an hour to an hour and a half conversation.
It's important. With
people. And that was really, really wonderful. And you could tell that family really appreciated someone sitting down with them and listening to their whole story. And not only that, but seeing them in the area for the last few weeks. It just made them feel like someone who represents them cares about them, and you don't get that very often. So I really appreciated it.
It's really good. And try to imagine Bloomberg doing that. Try or Trump. That's not. I would want our leadership, like we're always saying, to be one of us. Smarter. I want my president to be smarter than me. It's not too much to ask. I just really do. And I do believe that she is smarter. There's no way that she's going to win, to be president. It's just not going to happen. But I think that she should still have a spot in the upcoming administration. And things like that, I wouldn't care what her political ideology would be. If she was genuinely going to, citizens workplaces, their homes, and sitting with them, knocking door to door. I don't care what your political ideology is. It's so important to do. I think that every representative of the House, every senator, every mayor should take time out to do that. You don't have to go to everyone's house, just the people you represent. Go into the community, meet some of the people, ask to have a coffee with them. I love that she does that. And I do think she's genuine when she does.
I think so too. And that's one of the things that really make me like her as a person. So that's awesome. Check that out. Other election news. I don't know if there's really a whole lot worth mentioning.
There is something that's massive. How every single Democratic candidate was okay.
Oh, yeah.
Every single one was okay with the election being rigged, with the super delegates being able to come in and saying, well, we see all the people want this person, but we don't like him, so we're going to give the delegates to someone else. All of them are okay with it except for Bernie. So none of them deserve to be the president if they're okay with that. They're saying they're okay with us losing our democracy altogether. Just there's no point in it. I don't know. Stacey and I just rewatched from 2016 when the woman, her name is not, the short blonde hair.
Lauren. Shoot. I know who you're talking about. She's the chairman.
Yes. So she's screaming at them, and she's like, the ayes and the nays, and obviously the ayes don't have it. The whole room is saying no. And she gets so mad and says, well, the ayes have it, and walks away and then flicks people off. That's pretty much how I saw each one of those candidates the minute they said that. And that should be such a big story. It should be on, everyone should be talking about it. Fox News should be talking about it. Everyone should be talking about how these potential presidents don't care about democracy at all. They care about the will of the very small few, the minority, the ruling class, being able to have the last say. And that's the problem. That's what money can do. It can just take away one vote, one person, one vote's power.
Yes. And that what Christy is referring to is what happened at the Nevada caucus in 2016 with the chairwoman Roberta Lang.
Okay, yes.
That's what we were looking for.
So
yeah. And
if you pulled it up, and you can link it, if you guys haven't seen just how you can see people going, what just happened? You can hear people saying, what just happened?
What the F was that? Yeah. What the F was that? What the fuck is going on? It was a lot of that.
And some rules were changed. There are no super delegates on the first round, but there are on the second. That never got taken away. And why can't it just be a vote? Why do some people get to have more power than others?
So I'm going to give everyone a link down.
One person, one vote.
Yeah, no kidding. It is. And I just linked down below a YouTube video, not the direct one, because I love June from Shoe on Head, and Brainlit is her other channel. And she just posted something, I think, today, which was referring to what Christy just said. Did you watch that today? And yes, okay, yeah. I did as well, but I
like Brainlit a billion times more than Shoe on Head. I like Shoe on Head. She's hilarious. Mm-hmm. I think she is a very, very funny, smart girl. But Brainlit is it's comedy and politics together.
That's your shit.
That's my shit.
That's your shit. Yeah, I love it too. I love both.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I need it.
Yeah, and because I know I like gush over June every chance I get, but I don't think I've said it quite this way before. One reason that I really like her, and even on just Shoe on Head, is because she destroys identity politics.
Yes.
but she does it from the left,
Yeah.
which is neat, which is different. Because I found her first. She was the closest thing I got to politics first, and I'm still a lefty, right? She's not an alt-right kind of person.
No, she's a critical thinker, a Bernie supporter.
Yeah, and I didn't know that until like
Funny
a year and a half.
Hell.
Yeah, it's awesome. So she's great. It's awesome. Check out that video because it does show the yays and the nays, and it's important. I guess there is more to say in election news, but I'm going to make it quick because I want to make it half an hour topic.
10, 9, 8. No, I'm just kidding.
Elizabeth Warren. She did really great in the debate because Bloomberg and her thing. We already went over that.
Yeah,
but there's a flip side too. Afterwards, she like in the last day or so. Yeah. In just the last day or so, she has, I think, finally said that she will start accepting PAC money because they're drying up, right? She gave the reasoning of, well, I said that no one should take any PAC money, and everyone's doing it except the two women. Mention Bernie. That's the thing that bothered me.
Everyone's doing Bernie. It.
Right, everyone else is doing it, and like we're just gonna have to do it too.
No,
like it's not fair to the women.
Then you didn't mean it when you said it. You didn't mean it because you were only saying it as a gimmick, Warren. You were saying it because it made you stand out, Warren. You didn't mean it. Bernie's been a senator and his whole career he hasn't taken corporate money. The PACs that he does take, which he does, and he admits he does, are very progressive PACs. That I mean, if I was going to take any, I would be taking them from institutions that believed in and fought for the same things I did. And I think the two of them that I know of are even farther left than him. One of them, one of the people, there's two of them behind the biggest one, the one that gives them the most money. And they are like Kim Iverson with the, I would like to see a world with no borders. I think that I'm a citizen of the world and I should be able to go wherever. I mean, that's how they are, which, you know, Bernie's not at all. He's like, we need to stop. That's what makes the country. And so I think that if he's taking PACs, which, you know, it is what it is, look into who they are, because that says a lot about the person and what they're going to, what they're okay with. If the PAC is a regime change war PAC, that's what they're set up for. Obviously, the person taking the money is cool with regime change wars because they're like, yeah, give me your money. Let's do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dances with lies. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I love that. I was like, oh, that was really good. That's her Indian name.
Elizabeth.
All right. Before we move on, any other election stuff? Bloomberg was destroyed. Biden's still sleepy, but also got a couple hits in. He's not going to make it. Warren Klobuchar hasn't made any gains in this last debate. Buttigieg still sucks, and you can still do rat-based stuff. I don't partake, but I do enjoy. Excuse me. And Bernie Sanders still rocks my socks off. So I guess that's pretty much all you need to know. All right, next topic. And shoot, that means I need to keep talking. Next one is Abby versus Georgia. Abby Martin. If you don't know her, get to know who Abby Martin is. She's the head of Empire Files. She's been a Russian agent before. She's worked for RT. She's been a Venezuelan agent. She's been a Palestinian agent. She's been a Chinese agent.
Human
I mean,
rights
all of it.
warrior is what she is.
Yes, she's awesome.
And a Russian agent.
Yeah. So one reason why I really love Abby Martin, and let me start it like this. Yes, we're biased here. We're on her side, all right? Before I tell you what's going on, this is why Abby Martin is important, along with Max Blumenthal and Julian Assange and so on and so forth, is because the kind of stories that they cover, like Maduro's side of Venezuela or the Palestinian side of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, anything like that. The stories that they tell are the stories you don't hear on mainstream media. It is just the opposite side. So you don't need to agree with anything that they say, but you do need to agree that they have the right to say it. Because if you don't agree with their right to report things as they see them, then you are just advocating for an echo chamber, and you only want to hear one side of a story. That's there is no middle ground there. You have to hear the other side, and you just do not hear. Like, you don't hear anywhere but here, and like in a circle like this one, that Juan Guaido is not the president of Venezuela. You don't fucking hear that. Reason we know that is majoritively because of Abby Martin, right? And you can look it up. You can even Google it. He's not the president of Venezuela, right? They, like, in any technical way, he's not. So, anyways, Abby Martin filed a free speech lawsuit against the state of Georgia for an anti-BDS law. If you don't know what BDS is, it is boycott, divestments, and sanctions. So what BDS is a movement to boycott, divest, and apply sanctions on the state of Israel for having illegal occupations of Palestinian land and for human rights abuses of the Palestinian people. Fair enough. That's what it is. It is not something that says the state of Israel shouldn't exist, because Israeli people matter too. It's just the Israeli people are people, some Israeli people, ones who
the right-wing Israeli government wants.
Yes, the right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are the ones who are committing the human rights abuses and breaking like international laws while doing so. That is why BDS is important. It is important for people, some businesses, to say, hey, we don't want to work with these Israeli companies or support the state of Israel,
right.
Because of the bullshit they do. Because
it's the same thing we do here.
We don't tolerate it.
Right. If we don't like, if we find out, Bloomberg, if you know something is made by his corporation and you don't want to support him, you don't buy his stuff. You boycott his stuff. You no longer give him $1. And I do, to take people, the Palestine-Israel thing is so sensitive. I always say, just imagine, okay, not them. We're not talking about them. When South Africa had an apartheid, the world used BDS. And we don't have an apartheid there. It was the thing that drove it home. It eliminated the funding that the right-wing party and groups had. It eliminated it. So a lot of businesses fled. They couldn't be there anymore. And so there's no more apartheid, and it is an apartheid thing. So Mac is 100% correct. It's now back to the sensitive subject, just apply the same thing. Yes. And if I love to read our founding, documents, the First Amendment says that you can boycott. that you can divest. It says that in the, well, it says boycott for sure.
Yes. This falls under protest.
Right.
You are allowed to protest.
Peaceful protest. That's all it is. Right. And it's powerful. That's why they're terrified of it.
It is. And I have good things. So I'm going to continue because I don't want to get out of order. All right. So what happened? Why she is suing the state? It's not just because they have the law. What happened was she was denied the right to give a speech at Georgia Southern State University after being invited to a conference that they were having, and they were she was going to be like their main speaker. But because she would not sign a pledge saying that she would not in any way support BDS, they outright told her, well, you can't come now. Also, they canceled the whole conference. So yeah, they were just not going to let it happen. And she had changed her work schedule. She had paid for plane ticket stuff. Like she had put planning, and really dedicated herself to going to Georgia to do this thing. So she was out, money for this. So this law requires that anyone who wants to contract with the state of Georgia for services worth more than $1,000, it requires them to sign an oath pledging that they will not boycott the Israeli government, which refers to BDS. Yeah. So where do I want to go from here?
Israeli's a foreign government. You're being asked in America, at an American thingy, as an American person, to swear an oath to a foreign government.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Just making sure that's exactly what it is.
So if you sign this, it would basically make it illegal then for you to speak out against the Israeli government for doing anything. Literally, not just the BDS, but if they bomb China tomorrow. Well, you already signed this thing. You can't even protest that. But you can fight the state who applied the law. That's strange, isn't it? You could boycott the state of Georgia for passing this law. That's legal. You can protest that, but you wouldn't be able to protest the Israeli government. Very strange. Now, it's not just Georgia. This is something else that I wanted to let everyone know. All the states that have this law include Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Michigan, my neighbor, also Indiana is my neighbor, Minnesota, Mississippi, Nevada, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, my state of Ohio, Pennsylvania, my other neighbor, all of my neighbors, every neighbor, god damn it. We suck over here. Rhode Island, South Carolina. Christy's shaking her head. Yeah, you guys suck. You suck too. I said Florida.
I know. We're surrounded. You and Texas. We're in it.
Yeah, we are. Texas and Wisconsin. To reiterate, I'm not going to say the whole thing. That is 27 states. There are 50. So 27 states have agreed to step on your First Amendment right. That's some fucking bullshit.
And anybody that would sign away their First Amendment rights, their free speech, they're giving it away, either doesn't understand, doesn't care, or agrees. All three of those are alarming. Alarming. There are documents to before I forget, about that exact thing from the Israeli government, saying to go after the construction workers, the temp labor, the all kinds of businesses here in Florida. We are a vacation economy a lot of the time. So there are people coming and going, and they take advantage of that, stating in the documents that go after them because they're going to be like, wait, I can't do what? They don't have time to protest. They're trying to eat as soon as possible. They're trying to have a job as soon as possible. They know that. And they even, that's what it states. They will be the easiest to go after. The making American citizens sign away their free speech rights, with the easiest ones to go after will be the people that are desperate for a job. So put this policy in as many regular areas as possible so we can get as many as possible. That should frighten all of you, that our government said, go right ahead. We don't care about them, so do whatever you want. Yeah.
Sorry, I missed half of what you just said. One of our pets got to a box of fries.
Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah. All right. So, CARE is it's, I think it's a law office. That's who Abby Martin is going through this lawsuit with. It's a CAIR, CARE.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to also mention that. But yeah, the law, it's just crazy. I'm going to keep everyone up on this if I hear any more on this. It's been about 2 weeks with no real updates. I've been hoping to get some, but I wanted to report on this before
I'm interested
any more time has passed.
as well, because a big part of me is very excited and hopes that this goes all the way to the Supreme Court, so it can get shut the fuck down, because it is insanity. This is a foreign government, be it our bestest friend in the whole world or not. No, that's not how shit works. Our rights as an American citizen have nothing to do with your foreign country, ever. Now, if I'm in your country and I'm not allowed to do anything per your rules, well, then I'm in your house. I'll follow your rules, and then I'll come home where I live and follow our rules. But you can't bring your rules over here, because you think about that. Who does stuff like that? Kings, monarchies. They suppress what people are allowed to say, what they're allowed to express. You're not allowed to protest in like Saudi Arabia, the kingdom, in Turkey. There are authoritarians. That's authoritarian is what I'm thinking about. Like it's happened and happening now. It's not like we've got to be careful because Israel wants to put forth these policies that take away our First Amendment rights. No, it's happening, and that sounds crazy just saying it.
Right.
I'm so glad she's doing it.
Me too. I'm glad she's doing this. And from what I've heard so far, there's been a few cases that have been levied against states with these laws, and the people have won each time.
Yes.
Each time. So it gets knocked down pretty fast because
in
it
the
is
First Amendment.
brazen.
Unconstitutional.
Brazenly
yes.
against the First Amendment. Also, to just add a little assault here, I went to kind of zoom through a few stories on this to see how people were covering it. And one of the first things that I clicked on was the Times of Israel website.
Oh no.
And this was not a smear piece. It was just a fair article about it.
Yeah?
That's how brazenly stupid this is.
Well, I did not expect that.
I didn't expect that either. I'm going
because they were like,
it.
oh, yeah, the right-wing government.
Go ahead and pull it open here in a tab.
The authoritarians are only going to get away with what the people let them get away with. And if you don't do anything on all these steps that they're trying to do, eventually it'll be too late. So that's why it's so important to smack it down right now.
Yeah, it is. All right, so that's all I have. That was that cool thing that I wanted to share like 20 minutes ago. It was like, oh yeah, fuck this. Because even the Times of Israel was like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, this is what's happening. And they didn't really just support it. It was just a fair story on it. Like they just told the facts, didn't smear either side. It's just like, nice. Holy shit. I did not expect that. Yeah. So that's that one. And I'm ready for the next topic. I'm ready to listen now, Christy. I want to know what's going on.
Oh no. Okay. Well, I had to learn how to say some words, and I have to say this is a really fun. There's sweatin' is fun to say. I've been saying it for 3 days in my head. What's sweatin'. There's a lot of fun words that I had to learn, and had to learn the geography and a little bit of history, and then so I put it in here. I would say that there probably are people that would say that it is a biased view. So I have to upfront say it is a view from the land defenders themselves and from their attorney, with some history and some laws as they are, which doesn't have any kind of bias. There's the laws. So all of that together, and I could probably answer questions to the best of my ability. If you do have any,
I will have questions.
I don't think there's anything left for me to read. Let's just put it that way. I mean, as far as back in 2007, things happened. There was a lot which I had to learn about. So, Wet'suwet'en land defenders, which is so much fun to say, and everyone should be able to say that so that you can stand in solidarity with an indigenous group of people. Go ahead.
Can you type that in the live chat so I can see how to read it? Type it down there and then say it again for us.
I don't even have to look. Look, I just know it.
Wet'suwet'en?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I did it right?
You did.
Nice. Yeah.
It's fun, right? Wet'suwet'en.
Wet'suwet'en.
I like it.
Awesome. We got it. All right. Thank you, Christy.
Okay. You're welcome. Here's the down low on the Canadian Wet'suwet'en land defenders and why everyone ought to be paying attention. And I know it's crazy to tell people what they ought to be doing, but you really should. On Febtember. It's new. It's what's going to happen in the future. On February 6th, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and from here on out, they'll be RCMP. So I don't have to say all of that. So that's the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, or the RCMP, as I will be calling them, officials conducted a pre-dawn raid on one of the 3 camps occupied by Indigenous land defenders on Wet'suwet'en territory and North British Columbia. Land defenders are blocking construction of these are some of the things that I'm going to be covering. So land defenders are blocking construction on a 670 kilometer, or I translated it for us Americans, 416.319 miles, natural gas pipeline that would cut through their territory, cutting it, essentially in half. Well, Coastal GasLink has been consulting with Indigenous communities on the project, and the pipeline was approved by 20 First Nation Band Council. The Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs claim that band councils only are responsible for the territory within their individual reserves, meaning that they have zero say over what happens on the greater Wet'suwet'en territory. So much fun. I love that word. Okay, and also in response to these raids and the actions of the RCMP, sit-ins and solidarity, blockades, those have all popped up all across Canada and in the US, suspending railway service on major corridors across the country. On February 20th, at the behest of the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs, the RCMP have agreed to withdraw from their sovereign territory. So that's like, I tried to get pretty recent too. The chiefs have said that they will not meet with the federal or provincial ministers until the RCMP leave their territory. If you have been online or watch any news over the past week, it is impossible that you haven't heard about the conflict on the Wet'suwet'en territory, or at least saw something or a hashtag that said Wet'suwet'en strong. I mean, if you spend any time online, I'm sure that you saw something like that, or our friends that reside in
I've
Canada.
actually only heard it from you so far.
That's so sad to me.
Yes. Because I listen to a lot of news, as you know.
So sad. It really breaks my heart. Okay. On February 6th, in the darkest hours of the morning, the RCMP officials outside of Houston, BC, conducted a pre-dawn raid on one of the 3 camps set up on the territory. These camps are occupied by Indigenous land defenders who are blocking construction of the Coastal GasLink pipeline in northern BC. Since the initial raid, RCMP have reportedly arrested 28 unarmed people, with officers reportedly even going so far as to drag a naked woman out of her vehicle. Now, I did say that it was important for all of us to pay attention to what is happening, and that's why I'm covering this conflict in our northern allies country, for us here in America, in the US, I should say, because I guess America is like the whole thing. It's the Americas. Probably should remember that. I always call it America, and that's kind of like greedy because, I mean, but whatever. Listen, we were indoctrinated. It's not our fault. It's not. Now, if you were anything like Mac and I, you're probably skeptical of all stories and you question everything. You probably even have the same basic questions that Mac is probably having right now. Why is this happening to yet another tribe, another group of Indigenous people? Haven't the government and people and corporations taken enough from them already? Like, seriously, that's the first thing that happened in my head. Like, why? Why are we fucking with them? Here's what I could find out. Wet'suwet'en territory is a large traditional territory about 300 kilometers or 186 miles. It's west of Prince George in northern British Columbia, and it's occupied by members of the Wet'suwet'en Nation, which comprises 5 clans. The nation is unceded territory. That was interesting, meaning that is not covered by a treaty. And according to attorney Dr. Pamela D. Palmater, Palmatr, so it's like Palmater, which is fun too, but I'm not going to call her Palmater. The Wet'suwet'en people have been living on and governing those lands under the laws for so many generations. They've decided through their system of hereditary governance and talking to the people that they do not want any pipelines or any projects on their territory that could possibly contaminate water or land or make people sick. They're very firm about this, and their attorney is expressing this. They also made the decision that they've been successful, because they've been successful in keeping other pipeline projects off their territory, that is until now, that they're going to keep fighting. And their lawyer goes on, since at least the end of 2018, there has been a back and forth between the federal government of Canada and the Wet'suwet'en people over access to their territory for the purpose of building a pipeline. The natural gas pipeline known as Coastal GasLink Pipeline Project, say that 5 times fast, would run all the way through the Wet'suwet'en territory. I tried to write it as much as possible. It's so much fun to say. In October 2018, BC Premier John Horgan announced provincial support for the pipeline project on the news, likening it to the moon landing for the province. Like, it would bring so much to this province. And that might be true. In response, members of the Wet'suwet'en Nation have been standing their ground at checkpoints and blockades along the Maurice West Forest. There's a fight.
You leave her alone. That's not nice. Come here.
We'll be back to our original programming momentarily.
The new kitten screams and freaks out when anyone gets really close to her. It's really sad. I'm like,
well, I mean, everyone loves a good cat fight. Thanks, Landon.
She's crying. Hold one second. I'm gonna let her in Isabel's room.
Okay.
All right. So while she's consoling the kitten, I would just like to give my usual take on this, which is this is sovereign land, right? This is basically a foreign country that a corporation is just saying, I need to use some of this. Like there's, as far as I know, there's no compensation, right? And there's no permission, obviously, right?
There has been though, and I'm going to get to that.
There has been compensation.
There has been. It's the elected people that get elected every 2 years. They're only beholden to the federal government. They're saying that they want it and that they're voting for it. So I'll get to it. It's so stupid. It makes me so mad. They've been doing what they can with the checkpoints and the blockades in order to protect their land from the oil companies trying to access it. This initially came to a head January 2019 when our CMP advanced on a blockade set up and now this one's really hard for me to say, but it is Unist Oten, and I'm probably massacring it, but it is UNIST *OT*EN. It is a territory which is part of the Wet'suwet'en territory. After a December 2018 court injunction was granted in favor of Coastal GasLink, ordering the protesters to remove the blockage. But on December 31st, 2019, so now we're getting up to where we are right now, the dispute heated up once again when the BC Supreme Court granted Coastal GasLink an expanded injunction, allowing them to access the land and remove anyone in their way. In response, Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs issued the company an eviction notice. They did it completely legal. Then they did this in early January last month, saying the company was violating traditional Wet'suwet'en laws. And of course, those laws were with the eviction notice. So at the heart of this conflict is the decision by the provincial government to support the construction Coastal GasLink pipeline at a cost of $6.6 billion. This pipeline would run from Dawson Creek to just outside Kitimat, transporting natural gas that would then be exported. So it's not for the country, it's not for the people, it's not to nationalize the resources and benefit, it's to be exported for this particular gas company to reap all of the benefits. Of course, the country's getting paid, and there will be more than just a few winners in it, but it wouldn't be the people. This would be the largest private sector investment, is what I found on it when looking up what it would be for the economy. It would be the largest private sector investment in Canada's history. So that's, nothing to shake a stick at. But it would cut the Wet'suwet'en territory in half. And they would always, that particular area, the people who own it would have legal access to it all the time. And that brings a lot more issues. The highway there is, the Highway of Tears is what it's called because of the missing, raped, and forgotten and disappeared girls and females they have there. So much that all you have to do is look up Canada's missing Indigenous girls problem and read the story. is a big problem, and the government has acknowledged it finally, and they are doing things for it. I can't say that it is being ignored anymore, but I'm just saying they don't want people access there without them knowing who's coming. They already have this massive problem of their girls being abused or got, disappeared. While Coastal GasLink has been consulting with indigenous communities since 2012, same company, the pipeline was first approved by 20 First Nations band councils, including 5 of the 6 councils in Wet'suwet'en Nation. So there's 6 councils, 5 of them whose elected officials, who are elected every 2 years by the people, they're saying yes to the pipeline. So they have said, we approve, we want this to go down. But the Wet'suwet'en heredity chiefs declared that the elected band councils are only responsible for the territory within their individual reserves, meaning that they have no say over what happens on the greater Wet'suwet'en territory. The hereditary chiefs say that they never consented to any pipeline, and that a project like this will jeopardize the area's natural resources and restrict access to their own territory and grant access to other people. It's important to note that the hereditary chiefs, who are the leaders of the nation's governance system in place for generations before the imposition of the Indian Act of Canada. So this way of governing has been their way of governing before anyone came over to this continent. Inherit their roles. They inherit their roles. So be that what it is, I thought it was important to know. Some of us might think that we don't think that you're just born a leader. You should probably have to earn it. So there is that. And I don't want you to just, nothing is black and white. And they do inherit this. They are groomed to be the chief. That's how that happens.
Can I say something on that real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's important. To break that down a little bit, I don't appreciate governments like that. I think that's apparent. Like, we wouldn't want a government like that, any kind of autocratic government. But to overthrow a government like that is also wrong, right? So we do need to respect other people's cultures.
And it's through their mothers, people. It's not through the fathers.
Right.
I just wanted to add that too.
That's definitely important. And I think
they're not monarchies, the chiefs. They talk to the people they represent. And if all of them are saying one thing, or most of them are saying one thing, well, that does help their decision. And They do have this voting system. They get their roles through their mothers, and they can also be appointed. So the whole clan, there's the 6 clans in there, 5 clans in there. They can decide, we really, our chief is not with us, and a chief could be a woman or a man. None of that matters. It's the chief. They can appoint. They can, this person is just such a great leader. We're going to appoint this person. So now that their child would be groomed to be the next chief. So that happens too.
Right.
On the other hand, though, the band leaders are elected every 2 years. And while these leaders are elected by the people within their communities, they are accountable to the United States federal government, which is problematic at best. That really bothers me. This is a quote from the attorneys, the attorney. The federal government thought that the way Native communities were governing themselves was backwards. The implementation of band councils was a direct imposition on already self-governing indigenous communities, said Bob Joseph, the founder of Indigenous Corporate Training, a company that helps the corporate world and organizations work better with First Nations. And so for him saying that, these communities already govern themselves, but the people who came over thought it was backwards. The mothers get to say, and you're born into it, and we don't agree. So you're going to have this, and those people are going to be elected by the people, but beholden to us. And I just see a really big problem. And maybe there's just really good people that mean well. I'm sure there are. But it would be really easy for someone to not mean well and be beholden to the federal government. And, like I always say, the government isn't bad. It's who we put in it. That's why it's so important to pay attention, because government be bad when bad people be in it. So if we pay attention and we put people who care, that want to make a difference in their community and are willing to put in the work, that's who we want in it. And then the government wouldn't be bad. It would be, us as a society fighting for a better world. And then I did have to say a few things from the lawyer, that the RCMP, these Royal Canadian Mounted Police, are getting a lot of shit right now from a lot of people. And I thought, well, let's find out if it's fair. On February 6th, after claiming to have held off on following the injunction orders for as long as possible in order to resolve the dispute peacefully, the RCMP started clearing land defenders from Wet'suwet'en territory, arresting at least 28 people as of the publication time from various blockades along the road, including Wet'suwet'en Nation Hereditary Chief Frida Hudson. It's a move that people online and across Canada are not happy about, and neither is Paul Motter, the lawyer, who is Mikna, M-I-K-M-A-W, and that one's fun to say too, a Mi'kmaq citizen, and specializes in the areas of Indigenous law, politics, and governance, classifies the RCMPs, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, actions as unlawful, specifically because they're not living up to their job description, which is to be neutral. So I was like, well, that's interesting. I don't live there. In theory, the RCMP are supposed to be neutral enforcers of several laws in this country, says Pomatter. This includes First Nation laws, which are protected under Section 35 of the Constitution. So the RCMP is supposed to keep order and peace, she continues. But what they are not supposed to do is act as a security force, a sheriff, or any kind of eviction marshal for private corporations. Welcome to our world, Canada. That's what we're dealing with. Corporations doing whatever they want. It's scary, right? Which is kind of what they're doing, she says, because neither the provincial nor the federal government has asked the RCMP to go in and remove land defenders. The people actually live there, Paul Motters emphasizes. This isn't a protest camp. That made me think, wait, what? So they did. They actually do live there, and the RCMP are acting as private security forces for the Coastal GasLink pipeline. That's what America saw big time. What I saw big time when, the DAPL pipeline was going on, is that this corporation was able to privately pay for security military, private military, to spray peaceful protesters in the face with a chemical weapon. It just blows my mind. And I haven't seen that. Canada is not as brutal. They try to keep it on the nicer side, which I like. They also are having their human rights, and to be arbitrarily detained. I just want to cover that real quick. Canada's not really used to seeing that on a regular basis on their nightly news, that people are being detained without being told why they're there, and then being let out, 2-3 days later with no charges. That's kind of scary, right? The RCMP has something that's called discretion, actually. And it's one of the things that they have. They can say they were using, and it's a legal term for them, their discretion. And I thought that was interesting. They can look at a situation and say, well, this is really a private interest between a corporation and the First Nation group with constitutionally protected rights. we're going to stand down and allow them to work the issue out and figure things through the courts or otherwise. And when the provincial or federal governments ask us to intervene, if we need to, we will. But instead, they always seem to jump to enforce court judgments or corporations. And so that is a problem that we've seen a lot here. And it's really sad that it's spreading. It's spreading north. They say heat rises, I guess. If the roles were reversed, Perlmutter says, Indigenous people and their interests probably wouldn't be treated with the same approach. If Canada's abhorrent history when it comes to the treatment of Indigenous people is any indication. So we have that too, so I could relate. She also says, I could set up a private corporation and try to sue people, but I would never be able to call the RCMP. But the extractive industry has a very inappropriate relationship with the RCMP. She continues. So the RCMP monitors First Nations as potential threats to national security. That's insane, Canada. That's some shit that the U.S. government does to Indigenous people here. But I guess it's just the same. It's liberal governments shitting on people's rights. That's really scary to read that they spy on them because they see them as threats to national security. And the RCMP has a direct information flow back and forth between the extractive industry and the RCMP. So the Royal Canadian Mounted Police has a back and forth line between the extraction corporation or the extraction industry. But no such information flow goes back and forth between us, the ones who have the constitutional rights that are being stepped on, and the RCMP to see if the extractive industry is going to harm us. They just have it the other way around. Well, I think that that's so scary. I would not want to be an Indigenous person, as far as I think everyone should try to put themselves in the shoes of an Indigenous person in their country or anywhere and think about how hard that has to be. And without the help of the people on the outside, it's going to continue being a mountain to climb. I think that it's important that non-natives get involved, that people stand up for them. We have to, because there's more of us than them. And I think that if you see wrong, it's your responsibility to speak up. And we should be concerned about how they're treating the media, I found out too with this story. While the RCMP's treatment of Indigenous people on their own land is questionable, I'm going to blow this nose and mute this real quick.
Sorry about that. I'm responding to chat now. Welcome back.
Welcome back. All right. And while the RCMP's treatment of Indigenous people on their own land is questionable, equally questionable is their conduct toward the media. Since the February 6th raid, numerous journalists have been reported being turned away from Wet'suwet'en territory and threatened with arrest for trying to report on the situation. And there are a lot of Canadians that are not used to that. They're not, they even say, we have been for the last 4 years as a country railing about Donald Trump's interference with the right of the media to report in the United States. We've been railing about this. And we have this happening right here, says Perlmutter, the attorney to the Wet'suwet'en people. Journalists being arrested and arbitrarily detained, transported out of the territory, and not allowed to report. And then there are lots of tweets from many people that, talk about which journalists are locked up, where they're locked up. If you do hashtag Wet'suwet'en, you don't have to add the little thingies on the top. You will see a lot, actually. You just really have to look for it, and that's sad. No one questions the right of the media to report on what's happening in the government, or on the ground, or in the public, adds Perlmutter. That's just a fundamental right, and it's unbelievable that this could happen in Canada. Perlmutter says that in prohibiting journalists from reporting, or at least limiting their access, Canada is rapidly assuming the characteristics of an authoritarian police state, which I think that, that might be hyperbolic and not everyone sees that, but you do have to call it out when it's happening. And just because I didn't have police spraying me with pepper spray in my face while I peacefully protested doesn't mean that I'm not hurt from it. And I think that's what she's really trying to say, because I'm sure there will be someone to say that Canada's not an authoritarian police state. So I just wanted to make that. And I don't know what she's thinking. I'm not her, so I can't really speak for her. I'm just saying what I see in it, and that it is important to speak out about authoritarianism anywhere. This is one of the most significant things that has ever happened, she continues. And I'm not just saying that because this is another RCMP invasion of native territory. That's happened many times, she says. But for the RCMP to block the media is an attack on our charter. The most fundamental basis of a democratic country is access to open media and free speech. I agree 100%. What has the response been in Canada? Do people even care? All eyes are currently on Canada internationally, maybe not here, but internationally. Swedish environmental activist Greta Thunberg has directly called out Prime Minister Justin Trudeau for his hypocrisy on climate change. Per some reports, the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs asked for a meeting with Trudeau. This is all allegedly. I couldn't find anything saying that they did ask for it, or I don't know. In a statement to FLAIR, all capitals, FLARE, FLAIR, about these reports, the Office of the Prime Minister said, quote, "Our government is committed to a renewed relationship with Indigenous peoples based on the recognition of rights, respect, cooperation, and partnership." Blah, blah, blah. This project went through a provincial review, and BC has taken many steps to work together towards a solution. We encourage all parties to continue that important work, which I don't know. I do like Greta's, what they're talking about with her tweet. Her tweet, she had tweeted someone else's tweet. She retweeted a tweet. It's, quote, "If an alcoholic," and this is what, she's sitting there with Trudeau. It's so cute. "If an alcoholic assured you he was taking his condition very seriously, but also laying in a 40-year store of bourbon, you'd be entitled to doubt his sincerity." She's just so smart. I just love that kid. And on February 8th, Thunberg said she shared a photo of an occupation outside the British Columbian legislature, tweeting, "Indigenous rights equals climate justice. Hashtag Wet'suwet'en strong." So this is, across the pond. And I think that that's important. There's tons of pictures of people occupying their government houses. In Canada, a large part thanks to Twitter, people across the country have been speaking out, showing solidarity with people of Wet'suwet'en Nation. Across the country, blockades and sit-ins have popped up in support of the northern BC territory, with protesters blocking railway lines and sitting in legislature. On February 13th, via rail, VIA, rail, I don't know, I don't live there, so it could be via or VIA, announced that they were suspending all service across Canada in response to the blockades. As of February 19th, so this week, service remains suspended on most major train routes, with the exception of the Sudbury White River CP Rail and Churchill the Pass Hudson Bay Railway line. In response to the railway closures, VIA Rail announced on February 19th that they would be temporarily suspending 1,000 jobs, so suspending 1,000 employees. While this might sound drastic and like it's a direct correlation to the protest, which right wing is spreading really hard, it's important to note that CN Rail, which VIA Rail is a subsidiary of, announced plans to lay off 1,600 employees in December, a month before. 2 months before. So that was before the current debate had ignited or anything. But the work of the land defenders and their supporters seems to be working. So on February 20th, the RCMP announced that they would withdraw from Wet'suwet'en territory for the time being, with the expectation that the service roads be free of blockades. The territory hereditary chief said that they won't speak to federal or provincial ministers until the RC MP, the police, have been removed. Crown Indigenous Relations Minister Carolyn Bennett says that she has made 2 offers to meet with the hereditary chief. I don't know. That's what she said. So it looks like each side is saying, stuff. And I think that the elected leaders are for it, because why wouldn't they be? It is for prosperity. They're tired of struggling. Why wouldn't they be? And they have reasons to support it. And they were elected, so their job, think about ours, is to bring the economy to a better position than the way they found it. And we have the actual leaders of this entire territory saying there's no effing way. It's just not going to happen. And we have a federal government that is going to take the corporation side, is what it all boils down to. And then why should we be paying attention to a Wet'suwet'en territory in a country above us? And America is the only thing that matters, and nothing exists besides American, and we all speak American, and yeah, we don't really believe that. So it's really important to pay attention. Just because the standoff isn't happening in our own backyard doesn't mean we can sit back and not worry about it. I think that it's important that we all pay attention, because we've got a scenario where Canada's been found guilty of genocide by the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls, says Paul Mutter, the attorney. You've also had the United Nations Committee for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, a human rights treaty body which Canada is bound by, plea with Canada, stop this, withdraw the RCMP, withdraw the weapons, ensure there's no violence, and work on a process where you can sit down and negotiate this. Canadians should know that the world is looking at Canada and saying, what are you doing? What you are doing is wrong. It's a breach of human rights and Indigenous rights. And the lawyer continues, most importantly, I think that this is important. Canadians should care, because it could be any of us next. And I want to say she's right, and it should be humans should care. If Canada will do this for a corporation now with Native people, they can and will do it when extraction industry is required one way or another and gets the okay to go into any of the sleepy towns. And that's true. And I could say it even better. If there's injustice anywhere, it's a threat to justice everywhere. If there is unfairness anywhere, it's a threat to fairness everywhere. And I feel like this all happened before. I do. And there's so many things wrong with taking what you want because you can as a government, because you can. Nobody can stop. I mean, they can try, they can prolong it, but they'll just build it. Look at Apple. It's done.
And it leaked. And the pipe burst.
It's always going to have leaks. It's man-made. Weather happens.
Well, that's why you put it through land that no one cares about.
Right, and that's where the injustice comes from, because buy the land for yourself and put it through your own land, or you can't. I go into someone's house and lay down in their bed because I like it. Like, you can't do that.
Yeah. Well, why buy the land when you can just, I am the land, and be like, that's some nice land there you have there. Be a shame if someone stole it.
Yeah.
Anyways.
There's just such a long history of land being stolen, treaties not being just like whenever when I heard this starting to go on again, I thought, really? Why do we have to take anything else from them? And I don't say we as in just Indigenous people of Americas, from the tippy top to the very bottom of the Americas. we're here first. And that we're here now. I get it. But that doesn't mean that you can make people do things. I just don't like it. There are other ways for this pipeline. You're just going the route of the least resistance because they're the poorest, they have the least amount of resources, and it's fucked up.
That it is. That it is.
And wet'suwet'en is a fun word, and you guys should say it all the time.
It is. Wet'suwet'en. I'm going to remember that.
I love it.
Yeah. So thank you, Christy, for doing that deep dive. I really appreciate it. You know how I love your deep dives.
Thanks.
Um,
The lawyer said a lot. The lawyer, I told you, her name, she had a lot to say, and I thought it was all, she was a really good communicator. She was a joy to read. She made it very easy. I couldn't find her talking anywhere. I looked, but she had a lot to say. So yeah, I thought it was important to add, what.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I just can't write that any better. That's perfect.
Yeah, we'll probably touch on this one again because it's not over yet. And I'm sure we're both going to be following it pretty closely. This is the kind of thing that really got us into what we're
I do
covering
have
now.
to say that it was a little heartwarming. Maybe just because the bar is so freaking low here in the States, but that Canadians were mad that the wet'suwet'en were being removed from places where they lived, and they were upset. They weren't told to go in and do that, and they did it on a corporation's orders. And it was refreshing to see the Canadian people say, no, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do the legal route. We're going to go through the courts. You guys are going to be fucking adults over here. Eh?
Hey.
Going to be adults, eh?
Yeah.
I love our Canadian brothers and sisters. And I hope that they handle this in the most humanistic way and the most fair way. I can only really see one outcome. To me, that would be fair, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they actually sit down with the hereditary chiefs and the elected officials and the federal government and the corporation and actually talk about a way that this territory could make, obviously the corporation is going to want the lions, but if we can't see of a way that it would benefit every single person there, maybe that would be something to talk about. I mean, it's going to bring in billions of dollars. So that, I don't think that it's the best thing to do to the earth. But I also think that if you really wanted to get it done, when two people, when a mommy and daddy love each other, when adults compromise or two businesses compromise, I always heard as a kid, well, you're unhappy because it was a good compromise. You should both parties should neither be elated that they got over on the other one or feel like they totally lost. It should just be like, I don't like it, but I guess it's fair. I just don't go around them or over them or try to take advantage of already discriminated against long history of stealing their culture. They actually decided not to have a pipeline, or they have a potluck. Essentially, everybody brings food and they talk, and everybody can come. Everybody in the territory can come, and they all talk about. And they decided there that they weren't going to do, that they didn't want to do the pipeline. And I thought, that's, well, I like that. That you can say whatever you want. And I did have to add that they're born into it, that they are groomed to be the chief. But I did have to say that they do things very egalitarian as far as meeting. And maybe I'm totally wrong and I could be corrected on this, but what I found was a community that, decided together. And that the ones that said yes to the federal government actually have zero say over the territory. So that creates.
That's really important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the yeah, this one's a mess. We're gonna see how it goes, and we'll definitely keep up on it.
Yes.
Yeah, it just this kind of story makes me angry. It's one thing just to add on to this, just the one thing I will add on to it, just one actually this time, is we shouldn't be building these pipelines anymore anyways, right? We're supposed to be trying to wean ourselves off of fossil fuels, or not weaning ourselves off and stopping culture. Like for any kind of green agenda, we do not need to be building this. And that's just on the other side of things, right? That's the point we're not focusing on right now, because it is more important to protect the culture and the land of another community, civilization.
Well, that's something they did talk about at this potluck where everybody brought food.
Yeah.
One of the younger generations were telling the hereditary chiefs that, if we want a project this big with the federal government, then let's do it. But let's make it a renewable or something that we see a future in, something that doesn't harm or potentially harm us, make us sick, make the land sick. If the government wants to do that, well, let's do it here, of course. But yeah, we'll see if that ever happens. I'm sure they would not get first dibs on something that awesome unless we get Bernie Sanders everywhere, all over the world. That would be amazing. Look out, Saudi Arabia. You're going to see ankles and shoulders. Oh, they wouldn't know what to do.
No. Alrighty. I think that pretty much concludes our show for the night. Do you have anything else to add? Or we're done?
No. I say learn about one story of a group of people or an area of this planet at least once a week that you couldn't answer any questions about. Like if someone asked you about Bikini Atoll, the island, what could you tell them? If you don't know, look up Bikini Atoll. I know that Google asks me about fucking places all the time because I have been like, that's not true about whatever, and put information and links. And Bikini Atoll is one of the places when I did the This Is Our America series, and it's very contaminated. It's got nuclear.
It's Bikini Bottom.
You shouldn't go there. Yes, exactly. You lived in a pineapple under a sea.
Yeah.
Exactly. But there, because of the nuclear fallout, you live in a cantaloupe up in a tree. So it's a little bit different.
Oh, that was pretty good.
But a boom.
Good one.
I'm quick on my feet. Yeah, quick on my feet.
Way to make lemonade out of radiated lemons.
Who lives in a cantaloupe up in a tree? I gotta think of nuclear fallout, Bob.
All right. Check out my my episode with David Worley. I was on his show just the other day, so please check that out. He has a lot of other great guests that he's had on this week and the
Genetically modified
including
skeptic.
Genetically modified skeptic, Seth Andrews. Is he having Arn Ra soon too?
Yes,
Arn Ra, yeah,
so good.
Yeah, so he has a lot of great guests coming. So check that out.
Arn Ra has. I'm just waiting now for this next one to come. I'm like, come on, baby! I'm so excited. So the night that the first one dropped, of the last three, I watched it twice. So now, because the second one came out, number 3 will come out soon. I said, okay, whatever. I'm start at 1 again. So, and the systematic classification of life of Ara, I started that one again. I'm on 14. It's so
Sweet.
good. I forgot.
Yeah, it is. It is very good.
Everyone should do that too.
Yeah.
Or else.
Also, I wanted to let everyone know, in case for some reason you missed it, if you like progressive news such as this, check out the Nomiki Kant show.
Yes.
They're just the Nomiki show. Nomiki, yeah.
She's
But yeah, check that out on YouTube. It's going really well so far. She has some great guests. I just listened to one with Crystal Ball today. That was great. So make sure you check that out too. I think I mentioned last week I would have more info on a.
You lied.
On a on a GoFundMe or something for me to have some changes made and at the school and get a new camera. So I don't have info.
It's gonna be so cool though when you show everybody what it's all for.
So check it out. Like, just keep an eye out this week because I probably will have something soon. But I can't promise when because I have very little time. This is like the second time I've been on the computer this week.
You're trying to build something though.
Yeah, I am. But I need help, so I need to take time to ask for help. Okay, so I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us yet another Friday. We are done for the night. We are out. Live chat, we love you. Thank you for being here. Please share the link to the show. Share it out to as many people as you can so we can grow our audience. We depend on you guys to help us advertise, and we appreciate every link you share. Don't forget to like, don't forget to share, don't forget to subscribe. We love you guys, and
stay humanist for God's sake.
Please do. Good night.